Welcome back to yet another episode of this epic journey in which I'm trying to build an entire guitar from scratch, including hardware and pickup, with very limited space, tools and materials only sourced from local hardware stores. We are now on the final stretch of this build, and in this episode I'm dealing with the finishing touches for the body, headstock, and I'm also installing the frets. So stay tuned if you want to find out how everything turns out. Okay, so before going into some more cosmetic work, I will just point out some of the things that I've done in the last couple of days. So I managed to cut out the slot where the tuners will go in, and they look very interesting. It is definitely an acquired taste. I have also inlaid the brass bars in the body, and I think these really look beautiful. I am extremely happy with how this all worked out. So now I said that I will show you in this episode why the body looks like this. Now, I don't know what plywood this was and I don't know what veneer is on top, but from my tests, it looked like it's some sort of hardwood that is high in tannins. And what does that mean? If you remember my ebonizing trick, it will go down like that. I will do some ebonizing on this top. Now, why I sanded down some of the parts. The acetic acid will blacken the bits that I left on, but it will not affect the glue that's underneath. So I am hoping that this will give me a more interesting effect on the body of the guitar. And I will also treat this middle beam the same way. This piece of oak is quite high in tannins, so in this case you will see it go black immediately. Again, this is all very terrifying at this stage, but I have to go on with it. I've already done most of the work. There is only one way to see if all this craziness works. So let's do it. Now I want you to pay attention now, because this will happen extremely quick. And just like that, that was not sped up or anything, it happened instantly. This really looks beautiful. I do like this quite a lot. Right, let's move on to the body. This is going to be a bit slower, but hopefully in the end you will see that it's a really nice effect. Okay, now at this point I'm just going to speed the video up a tiny bit so you can see how everything reacts over a period of time. Okay, so it has now dried up, and I'm just going to heat it up a little bit with some tissue to bring out that dark shade in it. And I'm also going to heat it up with a little bit of steel wool just to buff it out. Okay, so the top is now ready for a couple of coats of oil. I'm not going to do it right now because I need to sand down the back and the neck as well, but the oil and some wax will bring out a very nice shine on the top and on the black parts. Now, there are a couple more details to sort out, but I am very close to finishing up everything. I have my bridge, which will sit around here. I have the tuners, and I have the pickup with a pickup ring as well. So this is more or less how everything's gonna look over on this side. However, I still need to figure out a system on the other side to hold the strings tight. Once I've done that, that is finished as well, and I can finally put some strings on it. So we now have the body finished and it looks extremely well. I'm very pleased with this and it turned out much better than I expected. We are now on the finishing stretch. There is not much more time left and there is not much more to go with this guitar. I have 2 or 3 more steps to make building wise. I have to cut this headstock in this funky shape. If I don't like it, I will be able to just cut it off square at the end. I want to see how it looks like that. I've had to make a string clamp because this is still a headless guitar. So this would keep the strings tied to the headstock over here. And I will show you in just a second how this works and how I came up with it. Now, after I'm finished with cutting and shaping the headstock, I will start working on the frets. I will install the frets. For that, I 3D printed some clamping blocks, which I will use to clamp the frets to the fretboard. And at that point, this is going to be virtually a guitar. So I will just show you now how I came up with the string clamp and how it works. Then I'm going to cut and shape the headstock, and then I'm going to install the frets, and hopefully by that time we will virtually have a guitar without the hardware installed. Okay, so I will now show you how I came up with the idea for this string clamp that goes on the headstock. I was going through quite a lot of ideas and it felt like I almost hit a brick wall. And then this idea appeared quite randomly because I found some pieces left of my letterbox cover that I used for something else, and these sides were looking quite promising. So I cut down a little bit of it and it actually worked quite well for what I needed. So this actually really saved me at that point. Now what this is basically just a glorified clamp. It has some holes in it and then it has a brass bar on the inside with threads in which you have these tiny screws. And you thread your string through the slots under the clamp, and then you would tighten this up, and then you'd have a very secure connection to the headstock. So yeah, this is how the clamping system works. I'm obviously going to polish it up and make it look really nice, but until then, let's go and carve the headstock and get that out of the way too. Yay! Now there's just a whole lot of rasping and shaping. So yeah, let's go on with it. So the headstock is starting to look very nice. I need to do some sanding, I need to blend everything in, but I'm quite pleased with this. So I'm going to go on off camera and do some sanding, do all the other boring stuff that you don't want to see now, and come back when everything's done. Okay, so I've sanded the headstock and it looks amazing. I am extremely happy with how this turned out. In the meantime, I have also installed the side markers, which are made out of some brass screws just glued in, and they also look very nice in there, and these two as well. So I'm now going to go ahead with installing the frets, which is going to complete the whole process. Once the frets are in, I will more or less have a guitar. I have already cleaned up the fret slots with a little triangular file, so that if I want to take the frets out at some point, I won't get a lot of tear out. Now I'm going to glue the frets in, and I'm going to use these radius blocks to hold them in until the glue sets. Oh, and what's the best thing to do while gluing some frets in other than watching the last episode of Crimson Guitars? So I'll catch you back in a bit when the frets are installed. Yeah, now this is definitely where my lack of experience with the guitars shows up. I am struggling so much to put these frets in, and probably the fret slots are a bit wider than they should be. It's a combination of things that, you know, just makes it a little more difficult for me to make this work. It is not my best fret job, but it is my first fret job, so I guess I'm going to learn over time how all this works. And now the last one. And we now have all the frets glued in. Definitely not my best job, but it is my first job nonetheless, so I can say I'm happy with this. I'm confident that they wouldn't come out because there is a crazy amount of super glue in there, so that is fine. And I do hope that I can level them so that everything plays out correctly. But yeah, at this point, this is almost a guitar. I have to fine sand this down. I have to apply some coats of oil and wax. I have to install the hardware, the bridge, the pickup, the electronics, and we can then test everything out. But for now, I am extremely happy with everything. I'm going to do some cleanup off camera, but yeah, we have almost a guitar now. And oh boy, does it look pretty. I could not be happier with how this turned out. However, it is time to wrap up this video. I will finish the guitar by the next video. So if you want to follow along to this build, please subscribe, like the video if you liked it. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.